Thanks for checking out Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. Here are your hosts, Andrew Hofer and Tom Sigel.
Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. My name is Andrew Hofer and I am the area director for Three Rivers FCA. I'm excited to be here today and joined by Coach Sigel. How you doing, Coach?
Yep. Hi, doing well. Tom Sigel, I'm the field ambassador and co-host here for the Inside the Huddle podcast. And Andrew, it's getting to be a lot of fun. I know that maybe we're a little better, maybe we're not, getting a little more comfortable. We'll keep working on it, but it's just been hearing the different insight from different guests that we've had is really enlightening, and I hope that our guests are enjoying it as well, and the listeners are logging on and listening and viewing and sharing it as well, because it's just been a lot of fun and continue to see it grow as something exciting.
Yeah, we may be a step above amateur hour now where we were a couple weeks ago. But it's been a blessing to have a variety of different coaches and athletes on so far, and to be able to hear their different perspectives about not only their athletic journeys, but their testimonies and how God's worked on their own hearts and used sports as a facet of that. So it's been amazing to hear the transformational stories. And, you know, as we continue to move forward, we're excited to hear from our guests. We've been hearing from a lot of different coaches and athletes here in the region, and appreciative of your kind words. But we're excited today for our guest, Alicia Williams from Bradley.
Yeah. Coach Williams, go over her bio real quick, but we are also excited. She is our guest speaker at our Coaches Appreciation Dinner on November 16th at TPC Deer Run. For coaches, they can go on the website that we have listed on the screen here throughout the podcast and reserve as our guest. But we're excited to have her. She's in her fourth year at Bradley as the head coach of the women's volleyball team. Spent a great career at Iowa Western Community College, where they actually finished in the top 4 times. They had 2 national championships, actually back to back in 20 and 21. And in 2023, she went into the NJCAA Coaches Hall of Fame as a volleyball coach. So after a Hall of Fame career at Iowa Western, she is now, like I said, in her 4th year at Bradley and doing great things. So we're excited to have her on this week.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing her story and hearing her testimony and, about how faith really plays an integral role in her coaching journey.
Yep. So we're excited to have Coach Alicia Williams from Bradley University on. Back with you today on Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. And we have Coach Alicia Williams with us from Bradley Volleyball. I know I covered her bio in the intro. So just a fantastic guest on this episode. We're excited to have her. So, Coach, welcome. And I'll kind of start with, if you could kind of go through your journey in volleyball, or even your upbringing, if you played other sports, but also the coaching journey that you've been on with a great track record so far.
Sure. Well, I grew up a small town girl in the north central Iowa, and I played every sport because when you're a small town kid, you just do it all. So somehow, volleyball just kind of chose me. I felt like if you asked me when I was younger what my favorite sport was, it was just the one that I was in. And so, I felt like volleyball, I had the biggest opportunity to kind of go and play afterwards, and loved my collegiate career, and ended at Creighton and just wanted to stay in the Omaha area. And so I had started at Iowa Western, being a small town kid, not playing any club. The landscaping of volleyball, of sports in general, youth sports in general, has just changed drastically. So I was never seen. And I felt like Iowa Western gave me a scholarship to go play there, community college. And I did not know that getting a scholarship was even a thing. I was like, I could go to school for free. This is awesome. And so I went there for 2 years, ended up at Creighton, then graduated from there. And then the position opened up as a as an assistant coach at Iowa Western, and it was actually with a different coach than I played for. His name was Darren McBroom, and I coached with him for a couple seasons, and then he wanted to thought about taking the job at Drake. And because I just played in the Missouri Valley, I was like, oh, Drake is a great job. I don't want to go with you, but I would say that it's a really good job. So we wanted to stay, my husband and I wanted to stay in the Omaha area. And so little 24-year-old me didn't know what her job was going to be after he left, because a lot of times assistant coaches don't stay on when head coaches leave. And so I went from not knowing if I'd have a job to them offering me the head coaching position at 24. And so I was just a baby, and I didn't know a lot, and there were a lot of growing pains there. But ended up staying at Iowa Western for, I think it was like 11 or 12 years, and really, really loved it. I really loved our time there. I felt like our community, we'd been in the Omaha area for a really long time. And then I had a lot of success there, and that bred a lot of phone calls and a lot of people kind of reaching out to me. And I never really had anticipated leaving Iowa Western, but when Bradley called, I knew that it was within driving range from kind of my family and kind of still close. And they were in the Valley, which I was really familiar with. And so I was like, I'll just go take a shot in the dark and, at least get my resume out there, kind of was what I was thinking, and came here, and the people here just totally sold it for me. And so then I made that move in, I think, 2021. And so I've been here this is my 4th season here, but, lots of wins, lots of losses. I've had a great just experience in my career. Didn't even know I wanted to be a head coach. Didn't know I wanted to coach. It was just the job that was open when I had graduated at Creighton. And, now 14 years, 15 years later, I don't know that I could do anything else. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
So, Coach, you've been at several different levels now, and you talked about the changing landscape of sports. What are some of the challenges that you've seen coaching at both the JUCO level and the Division I level, and maybe some of the major differences that come from going from Iowa Western to Bradley?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that's the same from JUCO to Division I is that volleyball is volleyball. So the X's and O's stay pretty much the same, and everything else is completely different. And so I had to relearn a lot. I would say some of the challenges at the junior college level is the turnaround is just, all the time, which to some degree is kind of changing a little bit at the 4-year level. But, you're getting 18 and 19-year-olds who are away from their parents for the first time ever. And there's a lot of change going on, and they're also in a very moldable and new stage of their life. And so that comes with a lot of challenges. And on my part, just a lot of mentoring them through, how to navigate college. Fast forward to 4-year, I think a lot of them kind of, rely on the upperclassmen to do those things for them. And so they don't need me, I don't think, quite as much. Sometimes I feel like, hey, I'm here like to help, and they don't come through the door as much as they did at the junior college level. That was definitely difficult. I think like scheduling and travel was gruesome. Like there were like months where we didn't have a home match like the whole month. And I had small children at that time, and I just don't even know, because now I feel so blessed in that area that we have like every other weekend we're basically home. And I was like, how did I go through that? And now I want to complain if I'm like out of town 2 weekends in a row or something. So that was really hard too. I think just being gone a lot more. The bus rides were, sometimes 10 plus hours, where, here you get kind of spoiled. If it's over like 4 or 5 hours, you're probably on a plane. So definitely some challenges there at the junior college level. And then I think here, what's been really hard so far is that, recruitment is probably the most important piece of coaching. And, when I was at Iowa Western, I knew exactly what I needed. And 9 times out of 10, I was able to get that athlete because we could provide something specific for that athlete that at this level, everyone can provide those things for. And so it's a little bit harder. We're one of 13 Division I schools in Illinois. So you don't have these kids just staying close to home. We're one of a many high academic institutions. And so you don't have just, that diamond in the rough that wants the high academics. And so you really have to figure out, how to get athletes to really see past some of the, bells and whistles that every school has, because now I just said I was a big fish in a small pond at Iowa Western, and now I'm a minnow in an ocean, at the Division I school. And so how do you get athletes to see the minnow? It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work. And ultimately, you want people that want to build relationships with you and fellowship with you and go through the hard stuff with you. And so that's where we've really tried to hone in on. But that takes a lot of time too. This is my first year that I've had an entire roster that I recruited, and I've been here 4 years. So the turnaround is just a lot harder.
Sure.
It's not every year that you're taking half a team and flipping it. And so that's definitely been harder at the 4-year level for sure. And probably the main difference is just recruiting is a lot different. And less schools are going to just give you games, I would say too. Everyone has Division I athletes on their roster. And so it's a lot harder to win. You can know all the X's and O's. I can call a timeout and tell the girls exactly what someone's going to run. They run that and they still win the point because they're really good athletes. And so sometimes, even though we know exactly what we're defending, we still can't win the point because, it's about talent level and experience and all those things too. So, I went a lot of different places with that, but I feel like there are just so many differences and a lot of obstacles that, when I first got here, I had to learn the new challenges. I felt like I was becoming an expert in how to problem solve all the challenges at the JUCO level. And then I got here and it was like everything was wiped clean and I had to start from ground zero again and figure out what are the new obstacles and how do I overcome them. And that was really, really difficult my first couple years.
Yeah. Well, I thought the perspective there about doing things right, for all the fans out there, that when things don't go well, the other team's trying to, and sometimes, they do some good things and you don't get the point.
I have to remind my players that too. If I told them, hey, 9 times out of 10, she's going to hit, in this spot, because this is what our visual analytics are telling us. And we're doing all this research and watching all this film. And, the 1 out of 10 times that she hits it in a different spot. And, my libero looks over to me. I'm like, hey, that was a really good swing. Let's try to play the odds here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's something that I've just really had to grow into learning is that, sometimes you can work really, really hard and you can feel like you have everything, perfected and all the X's and O's, everything's checked and you still don't win the game. And that is the tough reality of, the level that we're at.
Yeah. Kind of looking at the website, and I don't know, getting off topic a little bit, but it was interesting when you talk about the different levels, and I don't know what your staff was like at Iowa Western, but with Bradley, it looks like you have some maybe younger, a little bit more inexperienced coaches. Maybe you've been involved now as a head coach. How have you seen the importance or the challenges or the rewards of mentoring some of the young coaches? I don't know if you've had some that have gone on and taken their own teams or not, but as you go through your journey.
Yeah, so I think the landscape of assistants is a lot of them want to use, being an assistant as a stepping stone. Many of them want to become head coaches. Everyone's goals are a little bit different. And so for me, mentoring is kind of adapting to helping them reaching their goals. And the funny thing is, I always thought that I wasn't young. And that my assistants were close in age to me. And I just keep getting older and they keep staying the same age. And so now I'm realizing how much younger they are.
Been there.
But yeah, they all come in and they have, different goals. And so some of them have stepped from, lower levels into this role. Some of them have been in the same level, but maybe a lesser conference and things like that. And everyone has a different kind of um, background to being here. But what I really look for is just someone that, we got to go through the grind, and um, we have to deal with stress and pressure, and we have to do those things with grace and patience and kindness and all those things. And so those are, sometimes it's not necessarily their accolades or, what they were able to do. It's realistically, hey, this is my vision. This is what I want to do. Are you on board with it? And just really asking those kinds of questions to get to the heart of the person, because I always tell them, you got to like me, because you're going to spend more time with me than I spend with my husband or my children sometimes. And so we have to really kind of get along, but then also be able to challenge each other and make each other better too. I think I've got a really great staff. In terms of mentoring, like I said, they all have different goals. So one thing that I really like to do, when we first start, is just ask them what those goals are, and then I'm trying to help them to get that. So if they want to be a head coach, maybe I'm putting a little bit more on them in certain areas that they haven't gotten that experience in. Um, or if they just want to be an assistant coach and move up to a higher level, or they just love Bradley. I've got a girl on staff, Kerrigan Coggin. She played 5 years here at Bradley, and she loves Bradley. And she's like, I think she kind of reminds me of me, where it's like, I like this coaching thing. I'm going to stay because, I like doing it, but you don't know if that's going to be your career forever. And so she's got different goals than maybe, Will or Matthew. And so, it's just kind of trying to tailor to each person as an individual, and helping them, mentor them through what their needs are, and just having those conversations a lot of like, is this keeping you on track of, reaching the goals that you want to reach, or is this not? Do we need to, steer a different way? And so, I think, you have to have a fun staff. You have to enjoy your staff. And we definitely, you know, bond in other ways too. And,
Mhm.
Going out to eat is a luxury here and things like that. And so, just the little things I think are really, fun. We're going to do today's Halloween, and we're going to do costumes, and we did like a staff costume, thing. Like, it's just, you have to have fun with them too. And just ultimately, it's a selfless job. Um, you're required a lot for most of the time, little pay or, little reward, because, you don't get the win as an assistant coach and things like that. So just trying to find ways to appreciate them, I think, is huge too. And I think I mentor them um, the most by just being there for them. There's a lot of things that go on outside of just volleyball. And so we have to be there for each other. And I think I just want them, I hope that they feel very appreciated, putting in those hours and working hard for us.
Coach, you've talked a lot about relationships and the different virtues you can get through sport that have nothing to do with the sport itself. We talk a lot about it at FCA, like how important the coaches are because of what you said, where you spend more time with your athletes than they're spending probably with anyone else. So I know that faith has been a big factor in your life. How would you say your faith has played a role in your coaching?
I think it's faith. That's just a really large question, because I feel like faith is just every day, like just a part of me every day. But I think that there are definitely highs and lows. Um, and I think what's great about faith is that my faith never really falters depending on if we're on a 6-game winning streak or a 6-game losing streak. What it does is it kind of reminds me, and puts me back to, what this is all for, and what is it all about. And it's not about the wins. I don't think God is sitting there tallying my wins and losses at the end of the day.
Thank goodness, right?
He wants me to, he wants to, sometimes it's humility, sometimes it's like recognizing that you need to be saved, sometimes it's praise, and there's just a lot of different ways that you can utilize the sport and what you do for a career and the relationships that you make. um, that if you're grounded in your faith and that you have a firm foundation in your faith, you can see God in every little aspect, whether it's, something that's positive or something that you're feeling that is negative. And sometimes I have to remind myself, like, that was the flesh, and I'm going to think forward about, how God wants me to respond to this, or, I'm going to pray over this, even though I know that I am failing at it, all the time. And, sometimes it almost upsets me even more that I know exactly, you know, sometimes I'm very convicted in exactly what, God wants me to do in that moment. And sometimes I still fail to do those things. And, that on one end, I think that shows that your faith is strong because you're thinking about those things, and those things, um, are, in, the Holy Spirit's working in your heart. And, other times it just makes it more frustrating that my faith is strong enough to just let something that most, a lot of everyday people could just, dust off their shoulder and not think twice about. And I'm sitting here, you know, um, on my bedside, praying over these things. And, most people aren't thinking about it too. And so, it's twofold. It really humbles you. It makes you need a God, in tough times, especially. And my 4 years that I've been here have not been what I've wanted in terms of wins and losses, but it's definitely grown me because I feel like I need God now more than ever. I feel like I need, to be rooted in my faith more than ever. Um, my nose is in the Bible more, and things like that. And sometimes it looks a little, the journey looks a little rough, from a cultural standpoint or from what outsiders might see. But internally you feel that God's moving in you and through you. And I'm doing things, spiritually, and that I wasn't doing. And I think that, sometimes you have to go through some of those trials and be tested with your faith to get there.
Yeah, well, both in coaching and in life in general, there's going to be storms, and depending on how you're rooted, like that can play a huge factor and a huge role in your life because we talk about it. Like I'm so thankful because both Tom and I have coached for a long time. Like so thankful that our glory doesn't come from wins and losses because at some point you're going to lose, whether it's in life or on the court, or field, or whatever it might be. But if we're rooted in Christ, we've already won. And it's
Yeah.
such an uh, important piece of our faith, and to be able to not identify in our own glory, but in His.
Yeah. And I've
Yeah.
said before, been a part of our coaches huddle that we have Thursday mornings for over 20 years. And then I ended up being able to take it over. And I know scheduling wise, a lot of coaches say, well, when the season's done, I should have more time. And I've always said my experience has been, it's more important to have that foundation and weekly at least, getting with those coaches during the season, because that's when the struggles are really at their most. So
Yeah,
I
and I've
appreciate
always
that.
found that too. A lot of times your brain tells you all these things in your mind, and until you get it out and have, find these similarities with other coaches that, have similar perspectives of, I know all these things, but I need someone else to help me with that. I think that that's a little bit easier too. I have people that are coming, weekly, and they're just sending me prayers and things like that, and they don't know that that is so important for me staying, firm in my faith, and just understanding that I have people, that can come alongside me. And then ultimately it makes you want to come alongside others as well. And this year more than ever, we've had some players on the team that have just expressed um, that they're Christians, and express that that's something that's important to them. And um, makes me kind of giddy because I haven't necessarily felt that, since arriving. And I've always told my players, when they first get here, that I'm a Christian, and that if they ever need help finding churches and things like that, I always throw it out there. I always have the invite, but this is the first year that people have really taken a kind of a firmer stance on, the importance of those things. And so, where I have mentors and other coaches coming alongside me and praying over me, and praying through some of those really tough, difficult times for me to remember, where my wins and losses are. I think that I'm trying to, push that now onto them, and more than ever. And it's just been it's been so great to see just the transformation and what that does for an athlete. Um, because I think even though us as coaches, we struggle with that a lot too. No one wants to win more than I do. That's all right. What I always tell the girls, like, no one wants to win more than I do. Otherwise, I'm probably not in the right career field. But their identity is so attached, um, just like ours is, and they need to see that there's more to their identity than volleyball. And so, um, helping them through that has actually even grown me. And so, I just think that Christians need to realize how much coming alongside each other is just really building our own faith and, you know, affirming all the things that we know but are so hard to remember in the moment. And we've been praying before every game, and the majority of the team is praying, and it makes me so happy. But um, after we lose, I try to remind myself, like, hey, we just won. Like, I just had 75% of 80% of my team praying with me before a game. And so some of those things, it just makes it easier when you feel like you're, trying to step outside of your comfort zone and come alongside people and, keep spreading the good news. And it helps through some of those tough times too, for sure.
Yeah. Um, yep. Speaking with Bradley women's volleyball coach Alicia Williams, we appreciate her being on. I know Andrew has a burning topic question for this week, and I will kind of stop there, or we'll double the length of this episode when I get on the youth sports and travel ball and those type of things. But it is interesting as he gets into this with your background as a volleyball player and not playing club, and seeing it now from the other perspective and what it's going to become. So I'll let Andrew go from there.
Yeah, Coach, we love hearing your perspective on things, and you've been involved in volleyball at a variety of levels, and talked about how the game has changed and how sports have changed, and we've really seen that within FCA too, with the evolution of travel sports. But you've been able to see that from a more complete viewpoint. What are the challenges that you're seeing on and off the court from how sports have changed, and maybe volleyball specific? And then how has being rooted in your faith helped you navigate those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one amazing thing about, Bradley and, what conference we're in is that we are so fortunate and blessed that Sundays are our off days. And that's not every conference. It's not every sport. The NCAA requires us to have one off day. And a coach can make that any day that they want. But some programs are playing on Sundays, and fortunately we are not. And so I really like that because it allows for that time to fully be devoted, and have that day of rest, but then also be able to go to church and have the girls be able to go to church if they want to. And so from a collegiate side of things, I haven't seen the way that sports have evolved, because when I was a player, we also had that Sunday off. They've actually cracked down on some of the hours and things that you can do compared to when I was a player. And so I think now more than ever, they have more time. It's just a matter of, like, what are they doing with their time? That is more of the key component. But I will say I'm a mom of a 10 and a 9-year-old. And youth sports have just taken control of, like, our everyday life. And it's kind of it's it's flabbergasting to me that sometimes my 10-year-old or my 9-year-old are playing sports more than my collegiate players. And they do play on a lot of Sundays, and they do play late evenings, and they do travel, every weekend and those kinds of things. And I think the most important thing is that I do think that it's difficult, because it's like, well, do you just, and I have friends that they just say, my kids are not going to play on Sundays. We'll go to all the tournaments and not play on Sundays. And I commend them for that. I mean, I think that is, a firm stance. And there's other people that are like, the church is not the building, and you can bring church a lot of different places. So if you can't find the time on a Sunday morning, when are you making sure that you find that time to fellowship with Christians, to, have application from a message, put your nose in the Bible. And so we just, as a family, I see this a lot more than, at the NCAA level and the college level, because I do think we have a lot of downtime. And I walked down the stairs at the hotel lobby last weekend, and my girls were doing devotions at the table, at the hotel lobby table, and they're finding time. And so, I think there is that time. It might not always be at the time that, a lot of other people are, finding, going to church or having small group studies or things like that. But I think, you find those Christians, you find those people, and you make the time to do it, because it's so important to not lose those things just because you're playing in a sport. And so, I think of just, a couple weeks back when we had the MLB guy come. I don't know a lot about baseball, but we had the Cubs guy coming, and it's like, well, they're playing like almost every Sunday. Like, how is he finding time? They're playing like every day of the week. And so, um, I think it's more just like, it's discipline. Like, it's our job. And as coaches and as athletes, we're very disciplined in a lot of areas that many non-athletes are not. And so if you can find discipline in those things, are you finding discipline in the things that you say are really, really important to you? And if you say that, your faith is really important to you, then you're going to find that time. And so that's on the bus ride. That's in the hotel lobby. That's, on the Sunday that you get off. And so wherever you can find that, I think it's really important to just discipline yourself in making sure that you don't walk away from that because you feel that you don't have time, because there's always time.
It's a little convicting, but yeah, that's a great perspective.
You can just put that one in there. You don't have to put anything else.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Coach. We appreciate it. You're hearing your perspective and about your journey in coaching and your journey as far as how faith plays a role in coaching and your relationships with coaches and athletes. Just so appreciative of your time, and appreciate you being on with us.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And we're looking forward to November 16th for the Coaches Appreciation Dinner up here. Thank you.
I as well.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Boy, Andrew, that was another great listen, and back and forth with another great guest. And we appreciate Coach Williams coming on this week and sharing, her testimony basically, and her background and what she goes through as a college coach. So just really excited to have her on this week.
Yeah, I think she's got a unique perspective coming at it from both the junior college world and then now at the Division I level, but also dealing with recruiting, which she mentioned, and then having her own children, the 9 and 10-year-olds that are getting involved in travel sports. And, I know that was our burning question of this week for the week is, travel sports have become much more prevalent. And I think it's something that many of us as parents and coaches are dealing with. And inherently, sports are not a bad thing. Travel sports are not a bad thing. But they've begun to take over our lives. And I think Coach Williams mentioned that about, I think she used the word flabbergasted, about how dominant and prevalent youth travel sports have gotten. So we know it's an issue, and that there are some areas of that probably weren't intended to be there. And I think, this is going to be a topic that we're going to keep looking at down the road, because it's something that's playing a large role in the lives of our students, in the lives of the adults, whether it's coaches or parents. And it's definitely changed. And how do you handle those situations as a Christian? Because many times those tournaments are playing on the weekends, including Sundays. And I always kind of half-heartedly joke, but like, if you drive by the parking lot at the Betplex on a Sunday morning at 9:30, that thing's full every week of the year. And, our church parking lot's full like that. And, but I thought Coach Williams did a great job of bringing up, is the church a building, or who is the church? And are you taking it and being intentional and trying to find that time to pour into your athletes as a coach spiritually, or individually? Are you taking that time to, find find time to dive into devotion, to find time for prayer, and she did a great job talking about the intentionality of that.
Oh, I agree. And we wrestled with that with our kids. We had times where we would be, we would get to church, we would make it a priority and then hustle to a baseball game or actually missed, on occasion. But as it went, I think in really kind of delving in and having those discussions, like she said, that's what do you do? I mean, is that you have to be there every week? Is it more about the heart and finding that time at, other than Sunday morning at 9 o'clock or whatever the service is? But it's definitely, I mentioned like we could go on forever here because I mean, the trying to not get one-upped by your neighbor or the kid in the town next to you. Well, we can't take a weekend off because there's a tournament somewhere and somebody's playing. And, with all good intentions, as much as I have my views and sound like I'm ridiculing people for doing it, I also preface that usually by saying, I really truly believe every parent is trying to do what's best for their kid in those situations. And sometimes they're just being misguided by others, telling them you need to do this or you're not going to get a scholarship and those types of things. And so I thought it was interesting. I know times are a little different, but the fact that she just played and she did whatever sport she was in and didn't play club. And now, she plays Division I and now is coaching and has a career in that. And I just think that the perspective is something that, we kind of keep hounding on and what's healthy and what's not healthy. And I always loved hearing our kids at the end of whatever sport their season that we were in saying, well, we're done already. Why can't we play more? And I thought that's so much more healthy than how many, I don't know what the percentage would be, how many kids are like, when are we done? That you're doing all the off-season stuff for months ahead of the season when they're 9 or 10 years old. And then you have the season. I mean, I just think it's much more healthy when they are upset that the season's over and want more. And I would rather err on that side. So I know there I go. I'm getting off topic, so I'll stop there.
Yeah, I mean, and Coach Williams mentioned that a lot of these travel teams play more than her Division I volleyball team does, and that's not based on her own thoughts and ideas. It's based on the Division I.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Well, that's fine. You
it's based
stop
on the
talking
Division
for a
I.
second, so I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, it's based on those Division I rules, though, which are there for a purpose.
Right. But we don't have those rules at the youth level. And what I've told people, too, is, well, they would ask, well, when did you start, like with your boys playing travel and whatever? And they would sometimes they're surprised that it wasn't earlier. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I feel like if you're playing 60 basketball games when you're in third, fourth, fifth grade, is it helping them get better? Yeah. But, years of being a varsity basketball coach, all I can say that it almost guarantees that they'll be better as junior high players. They're going to be ahead of some kids. But as far as where they're at when they reach varsity level, there's no guarantee that playing that much when they're in grade school is going to make them better. At some point, yes, but at third, fourth, fifth grade, all that means they're probably going to be ahead when they get to junior high. So,
and well, ultimately, sports were made to have fun. They were made for competitiveness, but if they're not fun, it turns into kind of a monster at times. And I think that we got to keep that perspective, because if we get to the point where we're just constantly doing a sport, then it really becomes about us identifying with the sport. And so I think really as coaches and parents, like, we really play a big role in helping shape our kids. And we want them to be able to identify in what really matters. And, while you may be a basketball player, a volleyball player, whatever it might be right now, someday those skills are going to go away. And so you won't be able to identify in that. You want to identify in something lasting. And, that's what we've talked again all year about our FCA theme with glory, and like, who are you giving glory to in the way that you perform on the field, on the court, wherever it might be. And, being able to identify as a believer, a follower of Christ, is so much more important, both now, physically and spiritually, than whatever sport we might identifying whatever sport we might play.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll put a little plug in for our Coaches Appreciation Dinner on November 16th. Our deadline to RSVP is November 10th. You can just go to the website and it's right on there for coaches. And our guest today, Alicia Williams, is our speaker that night. So we hope you have an opportunity to be there. We'd love to have you as our guest. And Andrew, I know our Coaches Huddle on Thursday mornings is something that we will continue to do. And if you have questions about that, email me as well.
Yeah, our Coaches Huddle is Thursday mornings at 6:30 at either in person at the Welcome Inn in Milan, or you're able to join via Zoom. So usually we have about 10 to 15 people on there. And additionally, if you guys would like to start a coaches Bible study or huddle at your school, please reach out. We'd love to be able to help you and give you the resources, and just to be able to walk beside you guys as you do that. And I'd like to continue to grow that piece of the ministry here in our local schools.
Yep. And we're excited to do that. So until next time, we really appreciate you being with us on Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. If you have ideas for content or interview suggestions, just reach out to Tom or Andrew. Thanks again for checking out Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA.